The elevator chimed at the top floor, its doors gliding open with a whisper of glass and chrome. Mr. Langston stepped out, crisp navy suit tailored like armor, espresso in hand, phone already pressed to his ear. He didn't walk. He arrived, every morning, like a CEO descending from Olympus. The office buzzed to life behind tinted glass walls. Desks gleamed, shoes clicked, smiles tightened. People straightened in their chairs the second they heard his voice. Sharp, confident, commanding. "We need to trim the fat, Kelly," he said flatly, to his assistant, who struggled to keep pace beside him in heels too high and a notebook already filled with things he'd forget saying. "You mean layoffs?" He didn't look at her. "I mean, we're top-heavy with mediocrity. We reward people for hiding. Let's fix that dash." They turned into his office, a corner suite that felt more like a showroom than a workspace. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed everything in gold. The skyline bowed to it. Langston set his coffee down with a soft clink, tapped his tablet, and brought up the company directory. Rows of names, titles, faces. He scrolled lazily until one caught his eye. Miles, Eli, Systems Architecture. No photo, no accolades, just a name tucked into the infrastructure like forgotten wiring. "Who the hell is Eli Miles?" Langston muttered. Kelly hesitated. "He's in IT, works odd hours, keeps to himself. I think he was part of the team that built our core platform Dash." Langston snorted. "So was half the basement. He's still on payroll?" She nodded slowly. "Technically, yes, Dash." He stared at the screen. The name didn't spark anything. No boardroom moments, no complaints, no handshakes, just stillness. That annoyed him. "Dead weight," he said. "Let's clean house, Dash." Kelly blinked. "But if I've never heard of him, he's not worth hearing from, Dash." And just like that, the decision was made. Langston leaned back in his chair, pleased with himself. Outside his office, the city shimmered, a living machine of motion and money. But deep beneath the glass and steel, somewhere in the server stacks and silent back-end code, Eli Miles was already there, working late. As always, the office was humming, a soft symphony of keyboards, muted phone calls, and the occasional cough muffled behind glass. But in the center of it all, silence was walking. Eli Miles, black sweater, gray slacks, his ID badge hung sideways, clipped to a messenger bag slung low on his shoulder. He moved like a shadow, seen, but not noticed, always early, always last to leave. The kind of man who fixed everything no one thanked him for. Today, for the first time in 5 years, he was called to the top floor. Langston's assistant met him by the glass elevator. "The CEO wants to see you, Dash." No explanation, no warning. Eli didn't flinch, just nodded. The ride-up was quiet. 37 floors of rising tension. When the doors opened, sunlight poured in. Too bright, too clean. The air felt different here, filtered and pressed, like it didn't tolerate failure. Langston stood behind his desk, tall and self-satisfied. A man who liked the sound of his own voice more than the truth in someone else's silence. He didn't offer a seat, didn't smile, just gestured like a director calling action, Dash. "Eli, right?" Eli nodded once. "You've been here a while," Langston continued. "Solid work, I'm told, but quiet, Dash." He paced a little, circling the desk. "We're shifting, streamlining. I need players on the field, not ghosts in the server room, Dash." Eli said nothing. Langston paused, watching him, almost waiting for a reaction. There wasn't one. just a stillness that unsettled him more than anger ever could. "So," Langston said, shrugging, "we're letting you go, Dash." Silence. No gasp. No protest. No desperate plea to stay. Just a soft breath and a quiet nod. Eli reached into his bag, pulled out his access badge, placed it gently on the edge of the CEO's desk. "Thank you for the opportunity," he said, calm measured, then turned, walked away. No looking back. Langston blinked, then laughed, loud and sharp, like a man who thought he'd just done something clever. "That's the easiest firing I've ever done, Dash." The door clicked shut, and outside, far below the pristine glass, the foundation of the company had just begun to crack. The sound of the elevator doors closing echoed faintly down the hallway. Eli walked through the corridor with the same quiet stride he always had, calm, steady, unreadable. But something was different this time. His badge was gone. His laptop wasn't with him. And his eyes didn't meet anyone's. Just forward, focused, final. At his desk, people turned, subtle at first, one by one, like ripples from a dropped stone. Tasha from DevOps leaned toward her screen, whispering behind her monitor. Did he just fire Eli? No one answered right away. Until Ryan, from the security team, who'd worked nights with Eli more times than he could count, stood up, stunned. Does Langston even know who Eli is? Tasha blinked, apparently not Dash. The tension thickened, like the air had stopped moving. A manager across the floor glanced toward the elevators, already typing a message. Another employee checked the network dashboard, just to be safe. Then, a single word passed between two coworkers near the window. "Oh no, Dash." As Eli reached the lobby, he paused for a moment, not to say goodbye, just to look around, like a man quietly taking inventory before locking a door behind him. He didn't wave. He didn't speak. But his silence was louder than anything they'd heard all day. Back upstairs, Langston poured himself a second coffee and smiled. He didn't notice that Kelly, his assistant, hadn't returned to her desk. Didn't hear the soft hum of Slack notifications lighting up with messages like, "Tell me this is a joke, Dash." He fired the architect? We're screwed, Dash. In the control room, an engineer scrolled through back-end permissions and froze. Eli's name was everywhere, embedded in systems, encrypted in code, tied to root access no one else understood. The floor that once buzzed with normalcy now felt like a wire stretched too tight. No one said it out loud yet, but they all felt it. The quiet man was gone, and something big was about to break. The sunlight shifted across the skyline, casting long shadows across the office floors. Afternoon settled in with its usual rhythm, keyboards clicking, the low hum of conversation, espresso machines sputtering in the break room. And then the phone rang. Langston was in the middle of a call with a potential investor, pacing his office like a general surveying a battlefield. He waved at Kelly to answer it, already annoyed by the interruption. She picked up. "Yes, this is Langston Corp., Kelly speaking." Her voice changed, slightly tighter. "Yes, I understand. May I ask why?" A pause. Then her eyes darted to Langston. He didn't notice. He was too busy telling someone on the other line how strong their quarter would be. Kelly covered the receiver with her hand. "It's Vardentech," she whispered. "They're pulling out Dash." Langston blinked, then scoffed. "Over what?" "One late update." She shook her head. "They won't say, just terminating everything." effective immediately dash. Langston ended his own call sharply. Let them go. We've still got 50 more. That contract was stale anyway dash. He poured himself another espresso, dismissed it with a shrug. But just outside his glass walls, the ripple had begun. In the server room, Mason, the IT manager, stared at a screen that shouldn't have been blank. Lines of code were freezing, back-end processes looping, logs with timestamps that made no sense. He rebooted a node. Nothing. He opened a diagnostics shell. Still nothing. That's weird, he muttered. Where's the core directory? Across the hall, a developer hit refresh on the internal dashboard and frowned. Hey, is the data cache supposed to be empty? And then another voice. Guys, the Jenkins pipeline just vanished dash. Mason stood up, fast. His face was pale now, drained of the usual caffeine-fueled sarcasm. He moved toward his team, eyes scanning monitors with growing panic. He picked up the phone, called Langston directly. We've got an issue dash. Langston answered mid-sip. Unless it's on fire, handle it dash. Mason didn't laugh. Sir, Eli didn't just work here. He was the infrastructure dash. Langston set the cup down slowly. What the hell does that mean? Mason's voice was steady now. Cold. I think you just fired the guy who built the spine of this entire company dash. And in that moment, the storm didn't feel quiet anymore. It felt like pressure behind glass, ready to break. The morning began with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels wrong. The kind you notice because the usual sounds are missing. No hum of monitors waking up. No light banter near the espresso machine. No notifications pinging across the open floor. At 8:02 a.m., the first call came in. Langston was still in his car, dictating half-heartedly into his phone, when Kelly's voice cracked through the Bluetooth. You need to get in here, now dash. He sighed. Is this about yesterday's little IT tantrum? No, this is different. Virotech just terminated their entire contract dash. Langston blinked. What? No, that's not possible dash. It is, Kelly said. They're gone. Legal just confirmed it dash. He cursed, then hung up, sped through 3 red lights. By 8:45 a.m., 3 major clients had pulled out. No explanations, just clean, emotionless termination notices, as if they'd been waiting for a reason. And now, suddenly, they had won. By 9:12 a.m., 2 board members resigned. No face-to-face, just 2 short emails. Given the unfolding events, I believe it is in the company's best interest for me to step down dash. Langston's hands shook as he read the second one. He stormed into the war room. Mason was already there, pale, sweating. The site's down, Mason said. The backend's locked. We're locked out of the root directories. Git's gone. Jenkins gone. Deployment tools? Gone dash. Langston froze. What do you mean gone? Mason didn't blink. I mean they don't exist anymore. Not to us dash. Then fix it dash. I can't dash. Try harder. I didn't build it dash. Mason's voice cracked. Eli did dash. Langston's breath caught. It wasn't just one system. It was everything. The architecture, the server logic, the security layers, all of it wrapped around Eli's fingerprints, his code, his structure, his encryption. No one else understood it. No one had ever needed to. Until now, at 10:03 a.m., all employee logins failed. Every password reset, every emergency override. IT tried a full system restore. It failed. Langston's laptop rebooted itself mid-meeting. When it powered on, the desktop was empty. Just one file remained. Redundancy is an illusion TXT. He opened it. It was blank. Langston slammed the door to the conference room so hard it echoed down the hall. The boardroom, usually sleek and cold, now felt claustrophobic. Too many eyes, too much heat. The walls seemed to press in tighter with every second of silence. "Talk to me," he barked. The CTO, an older man named Reeves, stood at the touchscreen wall, pulling up terminal logs, diagrams, dev trees. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what he was about to show. Lines of code scrolled across the screen in a blur of logic and color. "This is the core infrastructure," Reeves began, voice low. "The stuff everything else is built on dash." Langston sat down hard. "Fine, so reboot it, restore from backup dash." Reeves turned, his jaw tightened. "There are no backups. Not for this. There never were dash." A coldness slid down Langston's spine. "Excuse me." Reeves tapped the screen again, brought up user logs, commit trails, metadata tags. Every major system update, every architecture decision, every key, every deployment, signed dash. He paused, zoomed in, and there it was. Author, E. Miles. Built by E. Miles. Last modified, E. Miles. Encryption root, E. Miles. Langston's mouth went dry. It wasn't just that Eli had worked on the system. He hadn't collaborated. He hadn't contributed. He built it. All of it. Alone. Why didn't anyone know? Langston whispered. Reeves looked at him. Because no one asked. He just kept delivering, quietly, efficiently. You never gave him a title, so he never asked for one dash. Langston stood slowly. The edges of his vision felt tight. He remembered walking past Eli's desk for years, never stopping, never looking. Remembered dismissing him in 15 seconds like he was erasing a smudge from glass. And now the company was unraveling, thread by thread, and every knot was tied by the man he fired less than 24 hours ago. "You said there are no backups," Langston muttered. "None at all." Reeves shook his head. He was the backup dash. The room fell silent. Langston stared at the glowing name on the screen, E. Miles, like it was a ghost. And somewhere beneath the silence, he heard it. The sound of a kingdom built by someone invisible, finally collapsing under the weight of being unseen. Langston sat alone in his office, the skyline behind him painted in the dull, gray haze of late afternoon. But he didn't see it. The windows might as well have been mirrors, reflecting back every decision that led to this moment. His desk was a mess. Half-drunk coffee, a cracked phone case, a yellow legal pad covered in frantic scribbles. None of it mattered now. He picked up his phone again, opened Eli's contact. Still no reply. He'd already called 5 times. Texted twice. "Eli, let's talk. You've made your point. I'm willing to discuss anything. Name your price dash." He waited. Stared at the little blinking delivered icon like it might blink back. It didn't. A minute passed. Then another. Langston stood up, pacing now, pulling at his tie like it was strangling him. He grabbed his desk phone, dialed IT. "Did you get an IP ping from his user ID? Any trace?" The reply came back dry, almost embarrassed. "His credentials are still ghosting our system, but there's no live signal. He cut us off clean. He's gone dash." Langston's throat tightened. He can't just disappear, Dash. Sir, the voice on the other end said, he already is Dash. Langston slammed the receiver down. His hand shook, rage and fear and disbelief crashing in all at once. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. You fired someone, they begged or threatened or cried. But not Eli. He'd walked out like a man who already knew how the story would end. Langston stared down at the phone. One more try. He typed, "You're brilliant. I see that now. Come back. I'll give you anything, Dash." He watched it send, prayed for the dots to appear. Just 3 little dots. But the screen stayed still. Cold. Empty. Dead quiet. And that's when it hit him. Eli wasn't waiting to be offered power. He already had it. He didn't want a raise. He didn't want revenge. He wanted silence. Distance. Freedom. Langston lowered the phone. His empire had crumbled. And the man who brought it down didn't raise his voice once. The boardroom was full. Not the usual shuffle of suits and scripted nods. This time, it was silent, a silence that cut deeper than argument. Langston stood at the head of the table, but no one was looking at him. Not anymore. On the wall, projected in perfect clarity, were documents, dozens of them, legal filings, patent records, digital footprints. Each one bore a familiar name. Miles, Eli J. The company's CTO, Reeves, stepped forward slowly. He looked tired, grim, like a man asked to deliver a eulogy for something still breathing. We dug through the original code base. The AI structure we've been marketing for years isn't solely ours, Dash. Langston's voice cracked the silence. We acquired everything. Eli worked for us, Dash. Reeves didn't flinch. Eli licensed his work to us. There's a difference, Dash. He clicked again. A contract filled the screen. Co-owner, Eli Miles. Co-patentee, Eli Miles. And next to that, a signature, another name. One of their largest private investors. He formed a joint venture 18 months ago, Reeves said. Silently, legally airtight. And here's the worst part. He clicked once more. Clause 14B, without Eli's continued participation or express transfer of ownership, the license to use his core architecture is void, Dash. Langston felt the room sway. That can't be enforceable, Dash. Reeves turned to him. It already is, Dash. Langston looked around the table. The board wasn't fuming. They were finished. Eyes down, papers rustling, phones buzzing quietly. Then the chairman, a gray-haired man who had once toasted Langston's first billion with a gold-rimmed glass, cleared his throat. Effective immediately, we're voting to suspend your executive authority, Dash. Langston's mouth opened, closed, nothing came out. What for? He managed to whisper. The chairman didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. Negligence and hubris, Dash. He tapped the gavel. Motion carried, Dash. Langston stood frozen, the taste of metal in his mouth. He had walked into this room to defend himself, to remind them who built the empire. But they already knew. And it wasn't him. Somewhere far from this room, Eli Miles was likely sitting alone. Maybe coding, maybe not. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't threatened. He hadn't even responded. But in that stillness, he had rewritten the balance of power. And Langston was just a footnote. The world didn't end with an explosion. It unraveled quietly, one notification at a time. By 3:12 p.m., the company's stock had dropped 22%. By 3:45, it was down 38%. By 4 o'clock, trading froze. Headlines exploded across financial news. Key clients withdraw from Langston Tech amid internal collapse dash. CEO fails to secure patents, shares plummet dash. Unknown genius behind tech giant resurfaces dash. Photos of Eli Miles began circulating online. Most of them were old, blurry, a few shots from LinkedIn. One picture showed him at a whiteboard, half-turned, unaware the camera even existed. His expression? Neutral, focused, calm. Like always. Employees began packing up. Some quietly, some angrily. A few simply stood in shock, scrolling news feeds, watching their futures fall apart like sand through open fingers. Langston pushed through the building's main hallway, shoulders tight, jaw locked. He didn't speak. He didn't stop. He just kept walking past the stairs, past the glass, past the eyes watching him now like a museum piece. He stepped into the elevator and hit the button for the executive floor. Nothing happened. The panel blinked red. He tried again. Nothing. He stared for a long moment, then turned, walked up the stairs 2 at a time, rage trying to fill the place where fear had already settled. When he reached his office, the hallway felt colder than it ever had. The polished floors reflected overhead lights like a sterile mirror. He moved to the door. Stopped. His nameplate was gone. No Mr. Langston Dash. No CEO. Just an empty space where the metal letters used to shine. He pushed the door open anyway. The office had already been cleared. No plaques, no desk clutter. The walls were bare. Even the skyline outside looked different now, like the city itself had turned its back. Langston walked to the window and stared out, his reflection swimming faintly across the glass. Behind him, a monitor still glowed with a frozen browser tab. A single article headline. The architect no one noticed, how a fired engineer brought a tech giant to its knees dash. Langston didn't sit. He didn't blink. He just stood there, alone in the empire he thought he owned. And realized, far too late, that power doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears silence. And walks out the door without a word. Because it already knows how the story ends. The office had no glass walls, no skyline view, no designer furniture or catered lunches. It sat above a bookstore, tucked between a bakery and a laundromat, with a flickering neon sign that simply read, Miles & Co. Dash. No fanfare, just a door. Inside, a small team worked late, heads down, code flowing. Screens glowing with quiet purpose. At the back of the room, Eli sat at a plain wooden desk, sleeves rolled, eyes steady. No tie, no title on the door, just focus. 6 months had passed since he left Langston Tech without a word. And in that silence, he built something new. From scratch. His startup didn't launch with buzzwords. No promises of disruption. No grand mission statements. Just solutions. Fast, clean, elegant. The tech community whispered at first. Wasn't he the guy who? Isn't that the same Eli who? Then they stopped whispering. Because within a year, the results spoke louder. Clients returned. Investors called. And one autumn afternoon, a single line crossed the wire. Miles & Co. acquires former Langston Corp assets in quiet takeover. No press conference, no victory speech, just a statement filed at 8:42 a.m. Later that month, a journalist from a mid-tier tech blog managed to schedule a rare interview. She sat across from Eli in his modest office, voice recorder in hand, eyes wide. "Why did you come back? After everything?" Eli looked at her for a long moment. Not cold, just thoughtful. "I never left," he said quietly. "I just stopped trying to be seen, Dash." She clicked her pen. "Did you do it for revenge?" A pause. Then a slow shake of the head. "I never wanted revenge," Eli replied. "I just wanted to be respected, Dash." He glanced at the wall behind her, where nothing hung but a single framed quote. "Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means focus, Dash." She wrote it down. He went back to work. And outside, in the city that once forgot him, a quiet wind picked up, carrying the story of the man who never raised his voice. And still changed everything. The servers had long been shut down. The stock ticker no longer ticked. Langston's name, once etched into glass, printed on covers, whispered in boardrooms, was now just another cautionary tale in corporate case studies. But stories like his never end with a bang. They end in silence. Across town, in a quiet corner office with no plaque and no ego, Eli Miles sipped black coffee as he reviewed another line of code. His new team worked quietly behind him, small, focused, driven not by noise, but by precision. He never gloated, never posted, never even mentioned Langston's fall by name. But those who knew the story remembered. They remembered how a man in a quiet seat held the foundation beneath an empire. How he didn't yell to be heard, he simply waited. They remembered the day Langston dismissed him in a single breath, and the weeks that followed, each one proving that Eli hadn't just worked in the system. He was the system. Not because he was loud, not because he demanded attention, but because he built in the dark what others took credit for in the light. And when the foundation cracked, no one could fix it, because no one ever asked how it worked. They just assumed. And in that assumption, everything fell. Some say Eli got revenge, but those who watched closely knew better. He never sought destruction. He simply stepped away and let the weight of arrogance do the rest. In the end, Langston destroyed himself. All Eli did was walk out the door. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They're often the ones who built everything you're standing on. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't fire. It's absence, complete silence, and a world that suddenly doesn't know how to run without it.